Hi, my name's Hudson, and I'm a geoholic.
Just a quick note to express our appreciation for the 2021 Friends of the Program for their continued support. Please consider their products and services as they have special promos for Geoholics listeners. Aerotech Mapping Inc., atmlv.com. Advanced Geodetic Surveys Inc., agsgps.com. Bad Elf GPS, bad-elf.com. Cobb Fenley, cobbfenley.com. Cyanic Automation, cyanicautomation.com. Diamondback Land Surveying, diamondbacklandsurveying.com. Get Kids Into Survey, getkidsintosurvey.com. Land Surveyors United, landsurveyorsunited.com. Mentoring Mondays, mentoringmondays.xyz. Monson Engineering, monsonengineering.com. Parkland Community College, parkland.edu/land-surveying. Safety Apparel, safetyapparel.us. And last but not least, Tiger Supplies, tigersupplies.com. Kind of digging that.
It's a mellow vibe.
It really is. You know what? I never knew who Keith Jarrett was until today, and producer Jake over there is going to tell us everything we need to know about Keith Jarrett here in just a minute. But once I started listening to it, I just left it on all day. I just worked to it. It was fantastic.
That seems like easygoing
It
music.
was so mellow. I loved it.
It seems like something you would hear in a bar in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. A little smooth jazz there to get us in the mood. So welcome back, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to. This is the 11th installment of what we call the Geoholics Anonymous. It's been a minute since we've done one of these, but for those of you that are new listeners, this is our kind of our roundtable formatted discussion on, specific topics that impact the geomatics world today.
When you say number 11, all I have to say is Larry.
Yeah, good one. So obviously Shoots is back, and we couldn't be happier. Good to see you, my friend.
Bienvenue, welcome. Thank you all for having me back.
Seems like it's been a year.
I know, it's been way too long. I got in here today and it just felt like home again.
Oh man, we're glad you're back. Since you've been gone, and you probably noticed, we've drank a 30-pack of Coors Light,
Thank you to your neighbor.
Half bottle of Old Elk, and some really smooth Terramana tequila that One Man Gangwall brought us. So needless to say, my liver is glad you're back as well.
Yes, I'll keep it 100.
There you go. That was good. That really good flow on that.
I like it. Perfect. So PJ, tell us about Keith Jarrett.
All right, guys, that was Keith Jarrett. Long as you know, you're living yours. So he's a pianist, composer, band leader. Keith Jarrett is one of the most prolific, innovative, and iconoclastic musicians to emerge from the late 20th century. As a pianist, he literally changed the conversation in jazz by introducing an entirely new aesthetic regarding solo improvisation and concert. Though capable of playing in a wide variety of styles, Jarrett is grounded in the jazz tradition. He's recorded over 100 albums as a leader in jazz and classical music.
He's fantastic.
I'm gonna have to listen to it.
I gotta say, yeah, I'm a new fan.
In just the minute we listen to, I'm already intrigued.
I was peeking at some of his other songs. Most of his songs are like 12, 13 minutes long.
Oh, it's a marathon.
It's jazz. It's no messing around.
Yeah, and if you read his bio, something I learned, and this is very unfortunate, of course, I think just in the last couple of years, I think he's had a stroke or two, and I don't know that he performs anymore.
Oh, man.
Like one of his arms doesn't quite work the same or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a sad story.
That's got to be a killer for somebody that's that talented to have that happen.
Yeah, it's like when
imagine.
Singers like have to do stuff, vocal cord surgeries. Not fun.
I think I might need that. You guys, how raspy I am.
Your voice. You have to get an insurance policy out on your voice actually now.
Those golden pipes are we'll call them bronze today.
Yeah, that's that voice. That's what puts asses in the seats.
Well, or ears in the seats. Yeah. My allergies. I mean, I struggle with them all year long, and I swear to God, in Phoenix, it's been windy. First of all, everything is freaking blooming right now, and it's been windy for, I swear, at least 2 weeks straight, every single day. So there's so much shit blowing around, and I am paying a huge price. So excuse the raspiness. We are here in the Diamondback Land Surveying studio, though, and it's fully decorated. Shoots just saw it for the first time today. Since
it looks fantastic.
He likes it. That's good. He gave us the vote of confidence.
No, I came in. I was just taking it in for a while before you guys even arrived today.
I like it. Yep. I'm glad you like it.
Of course. You put in all the hard work. I just show up and look good.
No, it worked out really, really well. So we're super excited to be here and can't thank Diamondback Land Surveying enough. So let's catch up with fellas just a little bit. Jake, what's new, man? Anything?
No, I mean, not since last time we recorded. Obviously,
Last night.
Yeah, exactly. We've got coach shoots in our present. So hopefully we're going to hear some more about that, but I'm going to keep it brief so we can get into the content.
Oh man, I got to tell you.
What have you been doing, Shoots?
I've been coaching.
Tell the listeners.
I've been
butter making, coaching.
Buttermaker shoots. I told my wife last night I need to get a beer so I can have it out on the mound before I pitch to the kids.
That'd be awesome.
They do sell beer at this.
Stop.
Where Hudson plays.
At the Little League Park.
Yes, they sell beer.
If I come to watch Hudson, I can sit and
delete.
Drink a beer.
Yeah, you could delete a few for sure.
You are kidding me.
No, they got pizza. They got hot dogs. Beer,
oh my
everything.
God! Now you tell me this.
Yeah.
How many games are left?
We still got a few, but as of last night, while you guys were recording, I was taking some line drives off my body. So my own child was the first one. He hit a pop up. I panicked because I can't play the field. I'm supposed to be impartial. Knocked me over. Another kid whacked one. And it hit me right in the leg. And literally he's running down the line and he's like, sorry, coach. Sorry, coach. Sorry, coach. I'm like, get to the base and then apologize to me.
My God.
So
do you wear a cup?
No.
It
was a close call last night.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I should.
Yeah, I saw the bruise and it's dangerously close to the jewels.
I was showing Jake. He was impressed.
Some of those, like you got 7 to 9 year olds, right?
Yeah.
And like 9-year-olds are like 13-year-olds when I was a kid.
Yes.
It's like kids are maturing so fast these days.
When
it's the hormones in our food.
When they wear the bigger numbers on my team,
Oh.
they're bigger kids.
Gotcha.
And yeah, they definitely hit the ball harder than the other ones.
Yep.
Hudson's number 1.
Oh, is he?
He's that little.
Yeah.
But no, I've been doing that, and you guys have had some good fill-ins for me, and hopefully, you don't find a replacement for me.
Well, I guess the trend is that the fill-ins have all been alcoholics.
Oh, okay. Good. Phew.
That's why we have you here.
I'm the voice. I am the
voice of reason.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I'm not going to take Mr. Banta's title of the voice of reason, but I'll be the voice of reasoning.
Of leadership, maybe. That's a good coach shoot. The voice of leadership.
There we go. I'm a leader of men.
There you go.
What about you after last night?
Not a whole lot, really.
Other than allergies.
Been 24 hours. Yeah, my allergies are killing me, of course. Just walking around in a daze today.
Yeah.
Got home late last night. Didn't get much sleep. Got up early. So I was texting you guys like 4 o'clock in the morning.
I know.
And just never went back to sleep. It's just been a long day. I'm tired.
I got to go back for a second.
Okay.
When Jake texted out, raise your hand if you're excited to see BS, I felt very satisfied.
I was going to bed. I was kind of up late, and I was like, "Oh, tomorrow, we're going back to back. We're doing a doubleheader. The shoots is back."
I had to tell Carrie first thing this morning. I was like, "Man,
they like me.
Yeah,
They miss me.
I miss doing this."
All right, man. Well, again, we're glad you're back. And in fact, since you're back, why don't you give us a little safety share?
No way. I refuse.
I'm not doing it. He's going on strike.
Well, eye strain is what happens when your eyes get tired from intense use, like when driving a car on a long trip, reading in low light, or staring hour after hour at a computer screen. And there are 3 things that you can do to reduce eye strain. Take breaks, easy enough. Go look out at the sunset or something else that looks good to you. Reduce glare. Your phone has that. You can just turn down the intensity, I guess.
The brightness,
what is that? Yeah, the
blue light, or there's a feature on there too. You can tint it out a little yellow. I do that on mine.
Okay.
So it's a little bit easier on your eyes. It kind of gives it an orange look.
And
interesting.
Then the last one is adjust contrast and color.
I think that's probably what. Yeah.
So all your websites like Reddit and stuff have the night mode. So when you can use them.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's Zeiss lenses, Carl Zeiss lenses, not you, Jeff, that deal with the blue light.
Yep, I've got those here too.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Oh man,
I feel like
I need to wear glasses again.
So many people have just been starting to wear, especially work from home and everything. Like these companies, Felix Gray, Free Plug, don't get used to it, but they have glasses like that. Everyone's starting to wear them at work and stuff now.
Yep.
Makes you look studious. That's why I wear mine.
Yep. Yep, for sure.
Geo hipsters.
I had to wear
Yeah.
glasses when I was like 10 years old, so now I refuse. I pop my contacts in the moment I wake up. in the
Really, I could
morning.
never do it. I can't touch my eye.
I don't think I could either.
It's not so bad, boys.
Really.
Yeah, no, it's totally worth it to not wear glasses to me.
I like it.
I feel like I've walked around in night mode all day today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just that.
I'm just
we're pulling
so
you out
glad you're
tonight.
here.
Come
Shits.
on, let's
Yeah,
go.
Let's do it.
We got
Let's
some
do it.
high energy here,
Yeah.
boys.
All right.
Jake looks studious in his glasses, though. By the way,
What about me?
not so much.
Not so much.
Very
studious.
studious. A lot of glasses in the call actually this evening. I like it.
I've noticed that like most of our guests wear glasses.
It's the studious thing to do.
Yeah, it's what the cool kids do.
I'm just refusing.
Speaking of the cool kids, let's get to our guests this evening. So we've got a couple beauties with us tonight. Gavin Schrock and Jeff Zeiss. Hopefully I said that correctly. He's going to correct me here in just a second, but I'm going to let them do a little bit of self-introduction and tell us a little bit about themselves. And since we're talking a lot about Canadian geomatics, let's say this evening, tell us a little bit about yourself and what your Canadian delicacy of choices. So Gavin, I know you're not in Canada, but why don't you lead us off?
Well, I'm close enough to smell the Tim Hortons coffee.
Yes, love Tim Hortons.
And well, there was a short stint in Regina, Saskatchewan when I was a youngster, but I dig the Keith Jarrett selection. He's from Pennsylvania, as I am originally, but we moved around a lot. But you can dispense with the Coors next time and do some Labatt's Blue in honor of our, Canadian geomatic
Love it.
brethren and sisterin. So, me? I don't know what my job title is. I have no idea. But my day job is two things. I've been running the statewide real-time network for 19 years now. And the other half is structural monitoring and utility surveying for a very large public utility. Yeah, we're close to Canada. Seattle is like junior varsity Vancouver. And my favorite Canadian delicacy, and this is heresy, Tim Hortons biscuits, when we're there. They are, I was going to say poutine, but we'll all say poutine.
For sure.
I think poutine is the reason why Canada has national health.
Yeah.
I can totally see that.
What's
That's
his blood
awesome.
type, A? Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We can go for days.
Yes.
All right,
But-
Jeff, tell us a
Jeff.
little bit about you.
Okay. Yeah. I've been involved in the underground infrastructure for probably 30 years. I've worked for Autodesk and I've worked for some other guys doing sort of geospatially related stuff. But it seemed like all through that time when I was doing other things, whenever I went someplace new, I'd ask them what they're doing about underground infrastructure. So I talked to people in Malaysia, I talked to people in India, I talked to people all over Europe, all over South America, North America, and so on, just to find out what they did about underground infrastructure. And I started a blog while I was at Autodesk about 2006, which right from the beginning had stuff about underground infrastructure, but it also had a bunch of other things about utilities and utility stuff and that kind of thing. And I'll just say one thing right now, is that I think that if you're in geospatial, if you're a young person in geospatial and you're looking for someplace to do something, to make a mark, to really do something interesting, this whole area of underground infrastructure is just going gangbusters. It's kind of like where we were with Earth observation maybe 20 or 30 years ago. When we were just starting to put up the big satellites with cameras, getting resolution. I mean, the Soviets were still sending film back to Earth, with much higher resolution than the Americans could do in those days or whatever. But I mean, it's the same level of excitement. New technology is coming up it seems like every month there's something new happening, and and it's all startups, right? This is not big companies doing things. This is all startups doing this stuff.
Wow.
And it's only happened in the last 2 years.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that here in just a minute, because I definitely want to get into that with you. And you've got so much knowledge and wisdom when it comes to that. This is going to be a great conversation. So the one thing we do want to kind of lead off with is this GoGeomatics. It's a website. It's a community that I quite honestly was not aware of until about a week or so ago when Gavin and I were talking about it. And I'm like, oh man, we got to talk about this because, you know, I don't know how many people here in the States know about it, but it's a really cool website, you know, tons of information there. So I took this off the website. It says GoGeomatics is the largest and most popular communications hub promoting the Canadian geospatial community. The business was incorporated in 2011. GoGeomatics hosts over 100 fun, free location technology networking events each year in cities across Canada. So really excited to learn more about this. So why don't we start with that? And Gavin, I'm gonna let you lead us off. I know it's something that you are definitely passionate about. Okay. Tell us a little bit about the GoGeomatics community.
Well, the founder, Jonathan Murphy, out of Ottawa, he couldn't make it tonight because he is right in the middle of 2 days of the main part of their giant conference called Geo Ignite. I'll talk about that in a bit. But going backwards, I got to know about GoGeomatics because of Jeff Zeiss. I had followed his blog for a very long time, being in utilities and also being in the Autodesk community. I'd been reading about that and some of his posts in GoGeomatics and involvement in their events too, and being Canadian and all. So GoGeomatics, it's 2006 is when it got going. It is a community, is the way I look at it. It's the biggest one in Canada, but I've been looking that for that type of community, it's actually one of the largest ones in the world. And there are quite a lot of Americans down south of the border here that frequent it because the content. So what the idea behind the hub was, it was going to be completely grassroots. There needed to be a hub. There were so many different associations in Canada, and they're all very strong. Canada is very geospatially charged, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And there's a lot of reasons why 3 of the major geodesy programs in the world are in Canada. And every time you go to a geo vendor surveying conference, you keep running into Canadians. They hire them like crazy out of these programs. Wow. Because Canada is just mind-numbingly huge. And to survey and map it is a major undertaking. For instance, precise point positioning, a type of GNSS that was developed by Natural Resources Canada, because they couldn't have enough control and cores out in those wide open spaces. So what Jonathan did with GoGeomatics was he wanted to have a hub where all of the associations, where you could connect through to all of the associations. He could be a channel for their events, their content. He put it together, volunteers, students, and geospatial practitioners. The readership's about 2/3 practitioners, like us surveyors. About a quarter is like management types. And then there's job seekers and students. So he ties together education-wise, all of the educational institutions in Canada that have anything to do with geospatial. Geomatics is a bit of a broader term there than here. There's less of a separation between surveying and, say, I hate to use the old term, GIS. So it is treated as one community. So that was part of the reason that this could be pulled off. There's it's really the geo job site postings, the education connections with the associations. All of the big provincial surveying associations are affiliated. And then also the volunteers. It's been a great place for young folks to get involved in experience in writing, organization. There's a team of volunteer editors and writers. I'm a volunteer there as well. I'd written for them for many years, but I'm formally now on as a consulting editor, whatever that means. So that just means I get to write any content I want and stuff it on their site. But the other thing is their meetups. The meetups are kind of cool. And I've driven up to Canada to get Tim Hortons coffee to attend some of these meetups in Vancouver. But they're 15 in the major metropolitan areas in Canada, often near the educational institutions. And these meetups are kind of fun. They often meet in a pub. They talk just like you guys when you're doing your intros. But it's great networking. but their back to school ones in September are sort of a rite of passage for any geo student is going to be going to these events because they get to meet alums and network from the first before they even go into the classes. So one of the outshoots that started 3 years ago is Geo Ignite. It's a big Canadian geospatial conference. Actually, it's bigger than a lot of the big national ones here. And he holds it in Ottawa because it's the center of a lot of the government and the industry. But it's free. There was the virtual are free. The in-person one a couple of years ago was pretty big. I don't know. You think there was probably 1,000 people, but the online one is several thousand people. We're in the middle of it right now. The main event of the 2 days, which is the Geospatial Forum, there was a jobs fair last week, a diversity group, and then next week, the zeitgeist for the Underground Forum. It's called the Canadian Underground Forum, but with looking at the content, I think it's all universal. I just want to call it the Underground Forum.
Sure. I
have not seen an event like that in the same manner many places. So you got the 10-cent tour of GoGeomatics. I'm going to give maximum time to Jeff, the guru in the underground. And yeah, it's great to be able to talk about subsurface utility engineering, the surveying aspect. If I can editorialize a little bit, that's what I do. With this potential for a global wave of infrastructure investment, all of a sudden people are not demonizing spending on infrastructure. With this wave coming, there's been a lot of analyses done. I just interviewed the folks from the Brookings Institute, and they said, here's the deal breaker. We're not going to be able to do that rapidly and digitalize AEC, which needs to happen to be able to afford this without knowing what we have. And the big hole, no pun intended, is the underground. It's the final frontier. And the good news is in the last 2-3 years, there's been a renaissance in ways of not only capturing it, but verifying it with satellites. And Jeff, you're going to go over a bunch of tech. So, yeah, Jeff, talk about the forum. I think even, mentioning some of the presenters, there's Canadian content, but most of it is pretty generic about standards, technology, case studies. So anyhow, sorry, I'll be quiet for a while.
Of the underground.
Perfect lead in, Jeff.
There you go.
So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Okay, great. Thanks a million for that, Gavin. As I alluded to earlier, the underground right now, I think is if you ask me if any technology area for somebody young who wants to get into something and do something and make a mark on the world, I think right now this is the time for underground. It's just happened in the last 2 years. A lot of these companies have been preparing for this for maybe 20 years. Some of the folks that will be speaking at the Underground Forum, and I agree, this is the Underground Forum. It's got some Canadian content, but this is people from the U.S. People who are respected in the industry, whether it's Canada, U.S., or wherever, are going to be speaking at this event. And so number one, this is an exciting area to get in. It's startups. It's not established companies investing in things. It's just a whole bunch of guys coming out of nowhere. And some of these technologies I never even would have dreamed about a year or two ago. For example, 4M analytics. So the way I classify what we're going to be hearing at this conference is one of the really most important things is legislation and regulations. Okay, it's boring as hell, but this is what motivates people like surveyors and others to do things, right? And I'll give you an example. Colorado and Montana now require that after you build something, a highway or railway, whatever, you have to submit accurate as-builts. Now, if you know anything about construction, you know as-built are usually pieces of paper. They're usually as designed, not as what went in the ground.
Yep.
So what's happening? This is a revolution in Colorado and Montana. You have to submit accurate as-built. In other words, you have to submit something signed by a PLS or PE that says this is what went in the ground. And if it turns out that those things are wrong, you can sue them. This is professional stamped documents, right? So this is a really big thing. And this only happened about 2 years ago in Colorado. Montana, same thing, about the same, or, it started in 2019, 2020. So this is all recent stuff. Now, this is boring. It's legislation, it's regulation, but this is what motivates, people to do things and creates markets for new technology. So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. We will have somebody from Colorado. We're going to have Rob Martindale, who's from Colorado DOT, which is responsible for a lot of what's going on underground in Colorado, is going to be speaking at the conference about, exactly how this happened, what motivated the legislators and the regulators to do this kind of thing. The second area that is really exciting is really a technology area, and that is ways of detecting where things are underground. If you've been involved in this industry, you know that usually people are using electromagnetic devices. They wave them back and forth. They're not digital. The only thing they do is paint the ground. And if you have to dig in the same place next year, the same thing will happen. They'll come out with their magic wands. They'll paint the ground. Nobody will record that stuff. It's been estimated that the US spends $10 billion a year, $10 billion a year finding things underground and basically throwing the information away, right? Right?
Crazy. Yep.
I mean, it's just incredible how much information is captured, as a result of calls to one call centers and so on, but not captured. So the other area that is really, I think, really exciting is, I call it mobile and cloud, but it means basically technology where with a handheld phone, you can capture the location of some new pipes you put in the ground, new cable you put in the ground, or some stuff that you've exposed while you're excavating or potholing or something like that. Upload it to the cloud, and that stuff can be shared with everybody on the construction site.
Wow.
It's simple technology. It's just cloud and mobile. From an IT point of view, there's nothing really novel about this. It's just taking it and giving it to a construction guy and say, walk down this trench before you fill it and capture a video and upload it, right?
Let me ask you this.
It's incredible.
Yeah, for sure. So like here in the States, I know that the, the record keeping or the records for, infrastructure are just so bad in most of the country. And, you mentioned Colorado and Wyoming, and just in the last couple of years, they've passed this legislation. Why now? Why is it happening now? Why hasn't this happened like 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So let me just explain briefly standard construction project for, the process for construction, building a highway, for example. Right? You guys are surveyors. So, the first thing that happens is surveyors go out and they put together basically an accurate 3D. You can get a DTM from it, really accurate data of where everything is above ground. Okay. Then the engineers come in and they take that, maybe they use the DTM, they figure out how much earth they have to move around, cut and fill and stuff like that. And they look at different alignments and so on and so forth, and they actually come up with a design. Then 3 days before you're going to put a shovel in the ground to begin excavating, you call up the one call center.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Before that, you have no idea what's in the ground, right?
So
I mean,
true.
it's like you're half blind, right?
Mhm.
You have this fantastic, accurate model of what's above ground. Underground, you have no idea what's underground, right?
Yeah.
And that's why the other thing that Colorado did is so remarkable, and that is Colorado mandated that on any public works project, which means any project that involves the public right-of-way, which means highways and so on, you have to do a SUE survey, subsurface utility engineering survey. It has to be signed by a PLS or PE. So there's somebody to sue, has to be submitted to the state, but you have to do that before you do design, which means now all of a sudden you've got, what's underground and what's above ground. So when you design something, you don't put something right through where there's a major, gas transmission line, for example. It's so simple,
Mhm.
but why it has taken 100 years to get here. I'll just give you a little hint in what happened in Colorado. In Colorado in 2017, there was an incident in Firestone, Colorado, where it actually was a gathering line from fracking, some fracking wells, but it was supposedly abandoned. It wasn't, but nobody turned off the valve. It leaked gas, blew up a neighborhood. There was fatalities and whatever. And somehow that plus the work that had already been done on Colorado and in Colorado with respect to the underground infrastructure, it all came together, and the legislature jumped right on it, passing the necessary enabling legislation. The regulators got right on it. Colorado DOT got right on it, and then there just happened to be this remarkable technology company, again, just a startup, young guys, in Grand Junction, Colorado, which is up against the Utah border, who had basically a mobile plus cloud solution that was implemented by Colorado DOT and is now mandated. So anytime you do any work on the public right of way in Colorado, you have to use this technology. It's called ProStar. It's from a company called
and
ProStar.
they're speaking on the first day, I think.
Yeah, and the CEO will be speaking after Rob Martindale. Paige Tucker will be speaking, and he'll be talking. Their product is called Point Man. It's just, it's an app. You just download it to your phone.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's pretty slick for sure.
You can do a high accuracy rover as a peripheral. I mean,
yep. Yeah,
that's what they're doing.
Yeah, it's genius. So Colorado's kind of leading the way on this type of legislation. I have to believe, or at least I hope anyways, that it's also in the work in the other states that aren't currently mandating it.
Well, I've heard that ProStar is doing a demonstration in Utah. In Montana, they took a somewhat different approach. They're not using ProStar. They're using something called Geoworks, which comes from a company called UIMS, which is a big underground, company. Okay. But I think, I can talk about Singapore. I can talk about the UK. This is not just Colorado and Montana. And I did talk to somebody recently from the Autonomy Institute or whatever, and they're talking to Texas DOT. So I think that this is something that the DOTs, they have a model, a working model of the benefits from Colorado and Montana. Yep. So it's not like they're going into, the dark. They're not going into a dark room where they don't know where anything is.
Sure.
Well, there's a convergence, if I could cut in. There's a convergence now of other technologies. Now, what's going on in parallel in other parts of the world, in some states of the U.S., is other technologies that come out of the geospatial intelligence industry. So when you talk about startups, Jeff, like 4M Analytics.
Yeah, 4M's a good example.
You'll notice a whole bunch of geo startups coming out of Israel. Well, Israel invests a lot of money into geospatial intelligence, and they want to get public benefit out of that as well. So a whole bunch of technologies. Switzerland's the same way. Where do you think Pix4D came from? A university in Switzerland that has a program just to create startups for geo.
Wow.
So here's some of the technologies that are kind of science fiction almost. There's the use of INSAR, satellite interferometry. That signal penetrates the ground down to about 16 feet. And when it comes back, you can differentiate the difference between potable water and non-potable water. The electromagnetic difference, showing that's where leaks are, and also that's where pipes are. There's 4M Analytics out of Israel. What they're doing with satellite imagery and aerial imagery is running AI through to look at other things that show evidence of there being utilities in the ground. The subsidence, the change of the soil color, appurtenances, all of that. So what's going to happen is that these, call them remote sensing, are going to give you a map of an area where suspected utilities are. So that means the SUE and the locates could be more focused. So when it gets to the point where the cost is not an excuse. I mean, people balked on costs of going out and doing the underground mapping and getting the GPR because it was expensive. But when it's not, when it's automated like this, and when it's as simple as an app to record it, the excuse won't be there. And I think that's where some of the legislatures are seeing the light going, you don't have an excuse anymore. So anyhow.
Yeah,
No, I think Gavin, I think you hit it on the head. One of the really key things about some of these technologies is that it doesn't add to construction costs.
Bingo.
You walking down a trench with a cell phone, making a video does not really add to your construction costs. Whereas in the old days, you had to call up and get a survey crew to come out and drive out and all this other stuff, which did add to cost. But I think one of the interesting things about this is that it really raises the issue of having a survey technician on site, but you don't necessarily have to have a surveyor on site, right?
Yep.
In other words, the surveyor technician can go out there, walk down the trench with whatever it is, LiDAR or a handheld or something like that, upload the data to the cloud, and then this, a professional PLS can look at that data, review it, do whatever before he stamps it.
For sure. And, you guys have mentioned technology a number of times, and, the price of the hardware is come down to a point where, like you say, it's a no brainer. I think about the Bad Elf, the Flex receiver, I mean, you can get one of those for like $2,500 and,
don't quote that.
Plus or minus.
Plus or minus. Yeah.
Plus or minus. But so we talked about Colorado and that legislation. What's the status of requiring Sioux survey services in Canada? Are they ahead or are they behind the game?
Oh, behind the game. Canada's behind the game. There are a couple of things in Canada that are looking optimistic, and that is I don't know what you'd call this in the United States. It's public works. It's called public services and procurement. These are the guys that buy things. I don't know what the US equivalent would be, but it's the guys who procure things for the government and manage the buildings and do all the leasing and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
So they're responsible for a lot of property, and that includes military bases. In the US, I mean, I think DOD in the United States is the biggest landowner in the world. And a lot of that property has got underground infrastructure on it, right?
Yep.
So, defense departments are really big on this area. And in Canada, probably the two organizations that are doing most in this area are Department of National Defense, which is the equivalent of DOD, and this procurement, this public works. And they are basically saying they are putting together a set of rules for basically what Colorado has said with respect to the underground, the public right of way. Procurement Canada is doing the same thing, and so that's the good news. But I think there's something like 23 different departments in the federal government in Canada that is responsible for property that has infrastructure on it. And so what the procurement agency wants to do is put together a standard set of rules that they can take the Treasury Board and say, look, this is going to be the set of rules that governs all underground infrastructure on federal property.
I'm curious, are there post-secondary education programs that can prepare somebody for the Sioux industry?
Well, Gavin, I'll let you go ahead, but I would say that, it's like one of the really interesting questions. I don't know whether you guys have asked this of other people on this, but how many people who have an engineering background got any kind of geospatial courses as part of that, as part of their engineering degree?
Yep.
Right. It just doesn't happen.
Yep. You're right.
So this is an area. That's what I mean. This is like computer science 30 years ago. You couldn't go to university and take computer science, right? I mean, people were going into it from music. They had backgrounds in English literature. Some of them were coming from engineering. I mean, it was just incredible. Well, that's what it's like with underground right now. It's just a wide open opportunity.
It's Wild West.
Yeah, no doubt. What Gavin? So what are your thoughts on that? Are there how do people learn this part of surveying? I mean,
it's a continuum. It's a continuum, of how it's done is always advancing.
Mm.
Now, the ASCE, American Society of Civil Engineering, they help put on a lot of focused courses on specifics. So graduate and postgraduate, no, there's just not that much of it going on. It's part of graduate and postgraduate civil engineering, but when it boils down to the specifics, they're great classes. I've taken a whole bunch of them, and they do them all over the country, and sometimes they pair up with a educational institution. One of the universities in Louisiana hosted like a whole week of these. That's what, well, if we had a hub like GoGeomatics, where surveyors could go and find this stuff, well, okay, we have National Association, but I kind of been wanting to nudge them a little bit more about SUE. We're very boundary survey centric in the United States. The last half of the last century, that was most of the activity, so we kind of have those blinders on and think of it that way. But these other disciplines are going to be, probably much higher importance with what's coming up. So like Jeff said, if go underground, young man and woman.
Yeah, go underground.
Yeah, I mean, the face of surveying is literally changing, before our eyes. Absolutely. The advancement of all the different technologies that are out there and just the different ways to collect data. It's mind blowing. It's hard to keep up with it all. It really is.
Well, the cool kids, you got to go underground.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
Yep.
It falls in naturally.
Yeah, for sure. What else? So are there any certifications? Like, can somebody get a SUE certification of any type, or we're not there yet either?
No, there are. Yeah, there are. And I don't know the full details on that. I wish I had prepared a little better for that. But there are certifications, like if somebody requires different levels, the ABC levels of locate requirements, there are certifications for SUE engineers. It'd be neat if that was included in like the certificate programs that like the NSPS puts on, work with them on that. Now the ASCE, we should have someone from the ASCE on sometime. I know that surveyors balk at engineers sometimes, but that's the gateway into this, I don't know, very valuable and very, potentially very profitable field for surveyors to get involved in.
So let me add a little bit to that. I would say in North America, you can hire a guy off the street, give him an EM device, and he's a locator. In the UK, they do have certifications. And if you're going to work in certain places, like I'll tell you, one of the areas that's really a hotbed for this underground stuff is airports.
Oh man, totally.
Because an airport is like a big city squashed into a tiny little area. You've got passengers. I mean, if you hit something, you've got a huge problem on your hands, right? And so one of the there's two jurisdictions in the world where they really have put together a comprehensive program to reduce underground damage, and they have statistics to show that they have reduced underground damage. So let me give you one statistic just to start off with, and then I'll talk about the other one. So in the United States, there's something called the Common Ground Alliance, which collects voluntary statistics. In other words, if you're a utility or anybody and you hit something underground, you voluntarily report to these guys, or you don't, right? And some states like Texas are very good. Some other states aren't so good. But their statistics show that there's somewhere between 500,000 and 800,000 incidents of hitting something underground every year, right?
Yep.
So that's about, I think, 1 or 2 a minute, something like that. I mean, that's a lot.
Yep.
Okay. So in Japan, there were 134. I'm not,
That's it.
I didn't lose my internet connection there, so you didn't hear all the zeros, right?
Wow. Why?
134 versus 500 or 800,000, something like that. Right?
Well, Japan's an interesting place. I did a work study over there with the engineering group of a large city. A couple of interesting things was there were no government surveyors. They used a roster of small firms. But the other thing was I asked about the surveying standards, and they handed me a booklet that was only 40 pages. And I said, "Is this for the city, the city here?" And they said, "No, that's the whole country." But
Wow.
the requirements to locate and to document the utilities is very, very strong there, and has been since the analog days. These amazing maps that I got to pour through there, and I was just almost in tears looking at it, going, "Holy crap!" So yeah, it's different in different parts of the world where things are congested, and you got to worry about that. Um, Europe, Belgium went in and they got in with all the utility companies, public and private, and all the different governments there, and said, we're going to make a base map of the entire freaking country. Oh, and to do that, we need a VRS network. So we're going to throw $1 million in and build a network first. So, but yeah, you were talking about certifications. The Underground Utility Location Contractors Association, NULCA, I think. They have certifications, and it's like, yeah, if there are certifications and clients catch wind of it, like a jurisdiction, they may go, you know what, we want to be sure it's not just the guy off the street. How about somebody that's had training in it? They may add that requirement. So it's like the CST certifications with the NSPS. If somebody knows that exists, they have a little more confidence that the person actually had training. So when the cost of doing it drops, it's not adding on to the engineering, and these legislations like in Colorado come around, I could see there'd be a demand for going, the same question you ask, isn't there a certificate for that? Well, there are some, and those outfits that provide those are probably going to see a boom.
This could really be a procurement problem. If engineering companies, DOTs, utilities or whatever start building into their procurement practices that if you're going to do locate for us, you have to have people who are certified according to these standards.
Yep.
Then it will happen.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Now remember that to be a surveyor in Canada, there are 13 examinations, not one examination and 2 Wheaties box tops.
That's a whole other episode right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had a buddy here locally that works for a large contractor, and this goes along with what we're discussing. He was telling me that on their projects, they hit so many utilities and spend so much money in repairs and lose so much money in delays that they got to the point at one point in time that they're like, is it even worth being in business? That's how much it was costing them. So, I mean, it's a huge, huge problem. There's no doubt about it.
The Federal Highway Administration of the U.S. will tell you that the leading cause of delays on construction projects is underground utilities.
For sure. Yep. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Anything else you want to
Yeah, I was going to mention one other thing. So we talked about Japan, and Gavin had some really good insight into why that is. But in Japan, it's a comprehensive approach. The contractors worry about things underground. There's rules that if you're within 5 meters of something, you can't use. You have to use a vacuum excavator, or you have to use hand tools. All sorts of stuff. And these are not just rules that people flaunt and say to hell with it. They actually follow, and everybody involved in construction takes this seriously. The Japanese started doing this in '83.
Wow.
I think there was the same thing. There were some disasters in Tokyo, and they just said, this is not acceptable. We just cannot, we're never going to be able to build out our infrastructure when we keep hitting things underground. And they put together a system called RODIS back then, which was implemented originally in Tokyo, but then I think it's in 11 other cities in Japan now. But it's comprehensive. Everybody involved in construction knows about this, uses the information. If you capture information, it goes into this database. You don't just tear it up and throw it in the wind. Now, the other jurisdiction where this has happened, where they have put together a comprehensive program that has shown and reduced the number of incidents of underground, is Heathrow Airport in the UK.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's the same thing. They put together a very comprehensive program. It involves the contractors. It involves the airport administration. It involves all, there's something like 150 different utility companies that have underground infrastructure at Heathrow. I
Wow.
mean, it's just, and they've just, it really comes down to getting everybody together and saying, guys, what can we do to solve this problem? That's really what it comes down to.
For sure, for
Mhm.
sure. And that's another example there of, and I guess I'll never understand it. Maybe Gavin can shed some light on it, but just seems like some of these European countries are so far ahead of us on the geomatics side, obviously on the SU side. And I just don't quite understand that. As much intelligence and technology and everything else that we have here in the States, we're behind.
Well, there's the another valley theory. When the U.S. spread out, there was always another valley out there. It was just the Wild West. Expanding like crazy. And in Europe, well, you're on that same patch of ground, and you've got to you've got to know a lot about it down to the gnat's centimeter. So especially congested areas, the towns are tighter, they were built with narrow streets, and your right-of-ways are thin, just like Japan. You've really got to know. Now, the craziest one in the world is Waikiki Beach in Honolulu. I went down underground there in some of the vaults and couldn't believe the tangle of utilities, and I was trying to make sense of a map for a phone company.
Wow.
So, but again, we go back to, you don't have an excuse anymore. So Japan, well, you said, yeah, it really got going in the 80s. But the thing that happened was, okay, to record that for posterity's sake, to keep the maps, to build those maps, well, they put up 1,200 GPS stations for their earthquake system. And as a byproduct, they had a national VRS network covering the entire freaking country.
Wow.
So when people were out locating stuff, they didn't have an excuse not to record it. They started requiring that in a lot of jurisdictions, even in like 2001 when that network was brand new. The tools to do it, the excuse isn't going to be there anymore. So I could see us following the rest of the world very quickly.
So interesting. I'm curious. So Ryan and I are both involved with the local UESI chapter, and I probably should know the answer to this question. But is UESI does that exist in Canada as well?
Well, I think that I don't know of anybody who's active in UESI in Canada. We're actually going to have Jim Onspach at the at our conference, and he's going to talk about two new standards from the ASCE. One's 3821, and the other one is, I guess, it's actually kind of confusing. So he's going to help clarify. But the other one is often referred to as the utility as-built standard. And these are actually already being used in Colorado, right? So Colorado has been plugged into these two things right from the beginning. And Jim Onspach has been heavily involved in UESI and stuff like that. But no, I don't know anything specifically in Canada. We have in Canada, there's another standard called, it's from the Canadian Standards Institute, CSA, and it's called the S250. And we're going to have somebody from Department of National Defense talking about the S250. It's quite different from the ASCE standards, but I think that when these new ASCE standards come out, that we will see some revisions to other standards, because this is going to be this is like the first ASCE standard came out in 2002, right?
Wow.
3802. I mean, it's been out for like 20 years.
So it hasn't been revised? It hasn't been revised since then?
No,
Wow.
nothing. It's still the standard.
Mind-blowing. That is mind-blowing.
And so this 3821 is the first, and the really big difference, that all it said was A, B, C, D, depending on what kind of, whether you went out and did a site survey, or you just looked at the as-built, or you potholed, or you use remote sensing or something like that, but no absolute precision. There was no provision for saying, oh, you're within a third of a foot of it, or something like that. The new ASCE 3821 will specify levels of precision. Right.
3802. Jake was how old?
3802.
02. Oh,
Oh, I was 4 years old.
there you go.
Oh my gosh.
That's some
That's so
reference for you. I
funny.
was still in high school.
Oh my gosh.
You were 4? Oh man, I'm
It's
old.
98.
I'm old.
So with all this technology that we have, and it's evolving constantly, you know, VR, AR, all that stuff, what's the future of the Sioux work and mapping?
I think it is going to be, I mean, I think when the other states see what Colorado, they already started, they're already looking at what Colorado and Montana, you know, are doing, and maybe Utah. I think this is going to catch on like wildfire, and it is going to just create so much demand for these new detection technologies, for the, you know, the mobile plus cloud solutions, for surveyors who can do both above and below ground. I mean, I think it's going to be a tsunami. I mean, when people realize how little you have, you know, with the technology now, how little you actually have to do, how little you actually have to spend, and the benefits from that. You know, I'll just give you, you know, we haven't talked about health, you know, with the effect of walking onto a construction site and getting blown up because somebody hit something. But if you look at the statistics in the US for, say, a period of 20 years, I went and looked at how many people were killed in civil aviation accidents, you know, major airlines. It was on the order of 403, something like that, not including 9/11, right?
Sure.
Everything else, not. Well, it's the same order of magnitude for people getting blown up and killed on construction sites, right? You know, but our perception just, you know, it's just not there. The FAA has a budget of like $70 billion every year, right? The only thing that's anywhere near this would be PHMSA, right? Which has a budget of, I don't know, 230 million or something like that, most of it coming from the industry itself. So it's like we treat airline accidents as really, we're going to spend gazillions to prevent those, but to prevent Joe, your Uncle Joe, being blown up on a construction site because somebody hits a gas main, we're not going to worry about that.
Work stoppage and change orders as well. There's some amazing numbers that Jeff's come up with. The future is going to be a layered approach. So if some of the preliminary work is done with one technology, it reduces the amount that has to be done with the next one and the next one and the next one. So it's going to be, you know, something like the outfit that uses the satellite and aerial to do the AI detection, you know, for suspected areas, narrowing it down. Then you get down to the final locate. And yes, you're still going to have to pothole in a few places, but as the you know, if we have a huge infrastructure wave of new and repaired infrastructure, and it was required to record where all those utilities are, we're going to be in so much better shape in no time.
Right.
Because since Japan requires that, very little, you know, the hard work has to be done to locate the utilities now, or a lot less. Than a lot less work stoppages. So
for sure,
yeah,
and it's an investment in the future.
And I'll mention one other thing too. Another, you know, area where the technology is really changing things. You know, we talked about as-built, right? You build something, then you submit these as-built, are usually pieces of paper. They usually go in the basement. Nobody ever looks at them again. When it comes to underground as-built, they're useless. I mean, because they're not as-built, they're as designs or whatever.
Sure.
But what some folks are doing now, I know 2 water companies in Denmark, I just blogged about a really interesting company in France, is instead of paper as-built, LiDAR scans. Just or a video, you know, walking down an open trench with your cell phone and a video and RTK, you upload it to a cloud. Forget about paper, right?
For sure.
And you know, we can deal with those volumes of point clouds. You know, it can be billions of points. Doesn't make any difference anymore. You know, and it's easy. Doesn't cost anything really. Walking down a trench with a LiDAR scanner.
An outfit in the UK uses the iPhone with that simplified LiDAR on the iPhone.
Wow.
That's what they use when they have the trench open now.
Isn't that
it's
incredible?
Recording it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, there's no cost for hardware. It takes virtually no time. You upload it to the cloud and everything else happens in that cloud and everybody can see it. And you're not only just getting a 2D or 2D map, you know, with lines and stuff on it, you're seeing all the other, cables and infrastructure that crossed your line. I mean, you're getting so much more information than you would get from just a paper as-built.
And Jeff, you were talking about the little inertial units you can put down a pipe.
Yeah, those are incredible. The
Little
fact that you can put that down a 2-inch live gas line, right? No disruption to the customers. You just put this thing down, you push it down a kilometer or something like that, you pull it back, and you've got plus or minus 5 centimeters of where the pipe is.
Oh my gosh.
And the thing can go around
That's
90-degree
crazy.
angles, right? This little thing can go around 90-degree angles.
Unbelievable.
Incredible.
That's great.
Now,
Yeah.
the other thing I mentioned to you earlier, I mean, this is just these, 4M, which Gavin mentioned, which said, look, we don't want to have any boots on the pavement. We're just going to use satellite imagery, aerial imagery. I mean, it's safe, it's fast, and all that. The other company that I came across just about 3 months ago is a company that is into magnetometry. They put some magnetometers plus, RTK plus GNSS stuff in a 2.5 kilogram package that they put on a drone, and they can fly this drone right down a street, no boots on the pavement, cross a field, whatever, right? And you can set up a flight plan. The thing goes out there and does its thing, and then you come back and you have a map and you upload it to the cloud and you interpret it and whatever, right? I mean, these things are going to really change how we detect underground stuff.
For sure. That's what I was saying earlier. Our ability to collect data is like it's never been before. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
For sure. So let's see. We talked about GoGeomatics. We touched on Geo Ignite. We touched on the Underground Forum, and of course, a bunch here on SUE. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we get out of here?
Got to plug the forum. It's the 29th and 30th. It's free. You can find it through the GoGeomatics website. But the Underground Forum, 29th and 30th. They got a great keynote on the 29th. It's Jeff Zeiss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
There you have it.
I'm just doing an intro. I'll just mention the keynote.
Sure.
Everything we've talked about tonight, somebody's going to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
There's
wow.
somebody talking about ASCE. There's somebody talking about inertial or gyro mapping. There'll be somebody there from 4M talking about how you can use imagery and so on. But there's going to be a couple of really interesting keynotes. One is Joseph Lottie, who's with a company called LuxModus. And this is the first company that basically put a LiDAR scanner on the side of a pickup truck and drove it along a trench with a new pipe, with a newly installed pipe on it. And then uploaded it to the cloud and did stuff with it, And you not only know where the pipe is, but you know where the weld points are, all this stuff that, can be really critical later. And he started doing that, I think, in 2018 or something like that. He's going to be the keynote on the 29th. He's going to start that off. On the 30th, the guy who's going to be giving the keynote is Otto Ballantine. And he's with a company called Reduct, which are the guys who put together this technology for inertial or gyro mapping of pipes. I mean, this is really dramatic. And then there's one other keynote, which will be a lunch keynote. And that's going to be a guy talking about putting together, you've heard of digital twins?
Yep.
Well, the hottest thing now, this guy's going to be talking about putting together a digital twin of the underground, right? A lot of times when you hear about digital twins of cities, they're talking about above ground things and you see the beautiful buildings and it looks cool and all that. Nothing about the underground, right? And there's no city that will run without the underground. And so he's going to be talking about specifically putting together digital twins of the underground.
That's pretty cool. That is cool. I love seeing those old pictures. Like I know we mentioned Michael Tuig before the show, and I don't know if you guys aren't following him or connected with him on LinkedIn, he always posts these really cool old pictures of, I mean, they're probably 80 years old, like when they're building those original utilities and stuff like that. It's crazy. It's crazy. But it's
the other thing, that
interesting.
Michael, the other thing that Michael has pointed out is that 80 years ago, the as-built were accurate. There's back in the days when they had to use pieces of paper and pencils, and this is even before Mylar, they actually recorded accurate, and Michael is given, Michael's company has got they've got piles of these old documents because they're reliable. And then when we started getting to GIS and technology, the reliability and accuracy went out the door.
Well, it's
So
coming
true.
back because precision is not as expensive as it was. I mean, the
That's
early
right.
days of GIS, plus or minus a meter, because that's
Sure.
all you could really afford if you were mapping a lot of stuff. Now you can map, you got spatial richness, you can capture so much stuff. Reality capture needs people to capture the reality. And I hope surveyors step into that role
Yeah.
big time, swaggering surveyors going, we are the experts in this. Get in there and just say, we are the freaking experts in this.
Expert measures for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with measuring is not dishonorable. You know, there's more to surveying than boundary.
Yep. No question. No doubt about it. Well, hey, I once again, I appreciate you guys being here with us this evening. Super interesting stuff. We could talk about this for hours, and hopefully maybe you come back another time and we can drill down on some of the other stuff that we talked about. But the passion is obvious. Super exciting. This underground forum that's coming up sounds like an amazing opportunity, and the fact that it's free, I mean, that's crazy in itself. Best way to find out about that is just go to GoGeomatics.ca.
Yeah, maybe I'll send you a registration link you can put up.
Okay,
when you
let's do
post
that.
this.
Yep.
Or just go to geoignite.ca.
Oh yeah,
There we go.
That's even better.
Geoignite.ca. It'll take you
Okay.
right there.
All right. Fantastic. Well, hey, thanks again. Shoot, you got anything you want to add?
You didn't ask me my favorite Canadian delicacy.
What is it?
Katie from Letterkenny.
Oh,
You've been holding that one for a while.
I had to look her up just to remember.
Katie Cat.
I haven't watched that show in a while.
Oh,
so.
classic. That's a good one. I
You
can't
guys,
disagree.
You guys were talking about that, and then I was just looking at pictures.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks again. I look forward to get this episode out. A lot of good information, and we'll definitely be in touch. So with that, hey, thanks for listening and everybody's continued support. We really couldn't do this without it. Check out our friends of the program, as many of them are now offering promos exclusively for Geoholics listeners. Feel free to send us an email at info@thegeoholics.com if you have any suggested topic ideas for a future Geoholics Anonymous episode. With over 35 listeners, this is an awesome platform to talk about whatever you're passionate about. As always, look for ways you can pay it forward. Bank some good karma. Shoots did it today, as a matter of fact.
I did while we were on the phone.
Yeah. Kudos to you. Be a good human being, and remember, you get what you give. What do you think about that?
Add value, make friends.
I like
Don't
it.
forget it.
Yep.
It's just the mantra of my life at this point.
I
Thanks to
love it.
Glinski.
I love it. So until next time, everybody,
Take care.
stay safe and healthy.
Once again, thank you to our friends of the program, Aerotech Mapping Inc. at atmlv.com, Advanced Geodetic Surveys Inc. at agsgps.com, Bad Elf GPS at bad-elf.com, Cobb Fenley at cobbfenley.com, Cyanic Automation at cyanicautomation.com, Diamondback Land Surveying at diamondbacklandsurveying.com, Get Kids Into Survey at getkidsintosurvey.com, Land Surveyors United at landsurveyorsunited.com, Mentoring Mondays at mentoringmondays.xyz, Monson Engineering at monsonengineering.com, Parkland Community College at parkland.edu/landsurveying, Safety Apparel at safetyapparel.us, Tiger Supplies at tigersupplies.com.